Thank you everybody for spending the time, taking the time to join us today. I'm very honored and grateful to be able to share this with you. Just kind of a quick overview of here's the main goal. So the main outcome of the digital marketing for small business is to develop an actionable and scalable digital marketing plan. There's 9 modules in this course to help you learn the language of marketing as well as the technology. And the reason I was honored to be one of the subject matter experts on this. I come from a 20+ year career of freelance and having my own businesses. So I'm bringing that small business mentality into this and how to grow it. And also the transparency on we never know it all. And I'm continuously always learning about stuff that we're doing as well. Before we move on, I'm coming from a different part of the country, so I respectfully acknowledge and grateful that I get to live, work, learn, and play on this traditional and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people who have taken care of their homeland for thousands of years. I'm very respectful of the Syilx Okanagan people, their knowledge, language, and history, as well as their ongoing relationship with the land and the natural world. I have the honor of working very closely with the local Indigenous groups here and very honored to be able to bring traditional knowledge into these courses and into the courses that I develop as well. So here, I'm going to go back one sec here. We're going to go through a sample lesson here. So this is kind of what every session would start up with is we would have short discussions followed by some activities, followed by a little bit more discussion, followed by an activity. There are shorter classes held in the evenings, so they don't take a lot of time away. The rest of the work, though, is done what's called asynchronous, and that means that it's done on your own time, so the preparation of the course. So here, I just kind of changed my window up a little bit for you. Is when you log in, you're a part of this course, you're going to be using Miscanis, which is the shell that MacEwan uses for their education platform. When you come into here, just kind of show some key areas. There's an area right in at the beginning called announcements, where anything that the instructor will be sharing with you will come here. They'll also get emailed to you as those get uploaded and added. There's a place to provide feedback, and there's an overview of the Micro-Credential. There's also just some technical support information here. There's some how to use the Blackboard Collaborate, how to use the system as well as a live sessions section. And that's where you will click on those links, and those links will take you directly to using what is called Blackboard Collaborate to do your live sessions. So what else we have that we developed when we were doing this was a student workbook. And this student workbook is something that you can print out. It's print ready. It's also a digital PDF. So you can come in and you can actually use it. It's a fillable PDF document. So if you do want to work specifically digitally, you can do that and then print it out after. They're just questions, reflection exercises, things to help you think and to supplement the content per each exercise that we're going through. And I think there's 78 pages. It's a pretty hefty workbook. Some may apply to your specific business, some may not. That's the joy of this program. And when I came into designing this program, it's what I've seen from doing my research is a lot of programs have kind of a one size fits all. This is what you need to do. This is what everybody needs to do because this works for me. That's not the reality of day-to-day business. Every situation is unique. So it's about taking what you need, being exposed to as much as you possibly can, take what you need, pick and choose what's going to specifically apply to you, as well as have a mentor who is your instructor. Your instructor takes more of a mentorship and a coach type role, where if they notice there's something that you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to do this because I feel like it's too much work, they'll make sure to remind you that that part should be included in your plan as well, how important it is. Now, there's different modules. So we start off with like module 1, talking about strategy and execution. And the focus behind the first couple modules is just kind of taking a quick inventory on where you are as a business, aligning your marketing with your business and your marketing statements, as well as starting to think about your story. And some of you may have heard this. It's a very buzzword. It's like share your story. It's all about story. Stories, the reason story is so important is because it's uniquely inherently yours. Nobody else can have your story. So when we are open and we share it authentically, we have true connections with our customers and our future customers as well, and our followers and our community that we're trying to create. So that's where the focus starts to come in on the first two modules. When you click in to one of these modules, it will take you into an area where you can do as many attempts as possible to complete a module. There are sometimes some small little quizzes and stuff to go through, but this will just kind of talk you. It's very quick, easy reads. It was one of the things that I wanted to make sure was that this wasn't heavy, that we were able to get the information that we want, use some interesting interactivity to help us out when we're going through this. And then I also started to incorporate in case study, and specifically my own case study. And when I went through this, I was actually in the process of starting a new business here in the Okanagan, where I live, where I do guided hikes. I do guided photography workshop hikes. So I take people into the backcountry here onto the Penticton Indian Band land, and we learn about the land. We learn how to respect the land. We learn about the wildlife, and we also learn about photography. So we're taking an Indigenous approach to that, of learning on the land, as opposed to just like, this is aperture and shutter speed and ISO, right? Like, no, let's go out and let's make stuff, right? And let's learn while we're making stuff and challenge ourselves. So once you go through and you complete these modules, it will give you a completed check mark, and you can kind of move on to the next. You don't have to do it in order. You can jump around. It is okay to jump around to different ones that you may see that are a little bit more interesting to you at the time, and as well as just kind of come back in and review. So we've got all these different modules. So we've got marketing strategy and execution, creating your story. That's the first kind of section. The next is when we go into basic design principles. And the reason we started to incorporate traditional graphic design and foundational graphic design is so we learn the language, and we're not focusing so much on learning how to use Photoshop. We're learning more about how do we use graphics, imagery, and text to communicate the information that we need to, and the message that we're trying to get out effectively to what our customer base needs. As well as later on, you'll see that there's a module that we included in here about working when is it time to start to work with external agencies. So an external designer, an external marketing company, and it's going to start to go through the things to be cautious of, but also questions and stuff to be, to ask them. But we're learning that vocabulary so we can speak with those companies and we'll understand what it is that they're talking about. A lot of times, I'm guilty of this coming from a design background. When I was learning graphic design, it was really cool when we learned the stuff about tracking and kerning and letting, we just need to adjust the tracking on that text a little bit and it'll be bang on. That's intimidating to people who don't know what that means. So when we learn that vocabulary, now you're able to talk back to the designers, you're able to talk back with the marketers and have conversations about moving forward. One of the biggest sections and components is this module 4 when we talk about search engine optimization. This is where it gets technical. SEO is a very heavy and complex subject that in the future may see its own and should see its own micro-credential, almost like a degree program, because there's so much that you need to know, and there's so many different areas. And we specifically talk about the differences between on-site SEO and off-site SEO, and how we can start to use those to help us out as a small business and get some basic things set up. So when it's ready to start to work with an external company, or even future down the road, we can start to get our analytics and everything working for us so we can start to review that data. It takes a while for that data to populate when we're doing stuff like this. It's not something that you go in and you optimize your website and then your website shows up at the top of Google. It is a process. And it's sort of like making a good soup. I always like to use that analogy where you would be, soup is not a one ingredient thing. There's not one type of, you just open something, the soup's great. It's a combination of spices and liquids and the vegetables. And if you eat meat, the meat that you put into it, the protein that you put into it, how long you cook it for, how the pre-preparation goes into it, how long it sits after, all goes into it. And the same way when we're thinking about SEO, and same with marketing as well. Then we go into talking about content marketing. And we specifically focus on the importance of video. Now, sometimes when I say that, people start to go, I don't want to do video. Video is such an important piece in the marketing, I would say, in the marketing pie, in the marketing puzzle, that it's kind of like the board underneath that's going to hold it together, because it's a way that we can create short form and long form messaging, and we can connect closer with our customer base. So we kind of go through, and there's a couple really cool exercises that we go through with this about the content marketing, but also something called the 80% video, and how we can start to create these videos with just a phone. You don't need anything special. Same with photos. You don't need anything special. These are awesome now. To be able to work with this. We jump into the advertising, and then we finish off talking about creating media, insourcing and outsourcing, working internally and outside. And then we finished off with something that was kind of, after we ran the pilot, we realized there was one area that was really needed, that the students were asking for, and that was email marketing. Cool thing about these micro-credentials is that they're continuously evolving based upon feedback. So it's really important that when you're in this program and you're working with your instructor, it's a two-way street. When I work with my students, I always want feedback to know how I can make this better for them, and that's now going to make it better for everyone. So just remember that. Stepping back to digital advertising, we go through talking about social advertising and search advertising and how to actually set up those accounts. And there's some really great checklists and guides that we can incorporate into here to help you out, that I actually use. A whole bunch of resources. So there's a resource section that talks everything, links, documents, and that's going to continually grow. And then we have the final assessment, which is creating a digital marketing plan. And some people, when you say that, some people, they get a little bit tense as well. It's like saying, create a business plan. Everybody loves hearing that, right? Create your business plan. Create your marketing plan. What this will do is, this is just a templated that kind of guides you. You don't have to worry about any of having all of these sections filled out. This is just like a massive shotgun blast of all the information that can be included into the marketing plan, but it's going to be inherently unique to you. And that's where your instructor is going to come into play. So let's come back into this one here. Let's jump back into like a little class. Okay. A very important, crucial concept to understand, and I may be speaking to the choir on this one, is that the true job of what I feel when I'm marketing is not to tell my customer what I think they need. It's to give my customer what it is that it's not me to tell the customer what I think they want, to determine what I think they want. It's for me to determine and find out what my customer needs and provide that. That's what's going to make you successful. So it starts with understanding who that customer is. Some of you may be at the very beginnings of starting a business, and you may not have gone through this process yet. You may have heard this. It's called creating a persona. So it's creating your ideal customer, who it is that you want to target and who it is that you want to speak to. By going through this exercise, it's now a foundational element that's very important to build off of. If we don't have a strong foundation and we start building too high, everything starts to crumble. So we have a strong foundation, we can build this to the moon and then some, on where we can go. So here, for some people who have a company that's already existing and you're looking at updating it, when's the last time you did this? When's the last time you reviewed? Who is your perfect customer? Who is the customer that you love working with the most? And make a persona based upon that. When I started my hiking business, I thought that my key clientele was going to be male. What I found when I actually went to market was that my key clientele was females. And the reason for that is a lot of females want to go into the backcountry, into these areas, but they don't feel safe, and they want to feel safe going into these backcountries. There is now my target. And that's how I want to speak to them about providing a safe environment, knowing that I'm certified in in first aid, know that I understand and I know the territory. I understand wildlife patterns, I understand wildlife signs. So I know that if we're in an area that has the potential, we live in bear, cougar, wolf country, and we're encountering them continuously, what the signs are and how we can make sure that we don't go any further, or how we get out of that area and make sure that we all stay safe. So I determined what my key customer was and what it is that they specifically needed and their tech savviness. So here in a traditional full-length class, this is where we would stop, and we would now take some time to reflect on what I just spoke of, but also now sit back and go, okay, identify your persona. So here's some questions that you can ask. Who is your most loyal customer? If you know this so far, what customer group would you like to attract? What is missing in your business right now? And what is one customer that could supplement it? So how can you grow this in another direction? Now, you don't have to answer all of these, but these are just questions to help guide you, and you may start to develop your own. There's other resources that, maybe you may be exposed to from your instructor about how you can start to find more of this, a more in-depth questionnaire. Here, the next area is kind of like their digital savviness, right? We're talking about digital marketing for small business and being aware of that. Now, I just want to kind of tangent this a little bit because we had a little discussion before the session started. I grew up and was raised in Edmonton, and I lived in Edmonton for most of my life. And that was, it's considered a large market because of the population in the vicinity and the areas surrounding Edmonton. So we have a lot of users to pick and choose from. And the digital savviness of most of those users are incredibly high just because of the demographic of that region. I moved to the South Okanagan specifically. I live in a small town called Summerland, which has only I think it's 10,000 people. It's not big whatsoever. And south, when I'm going into Osoyoos and Oliver, there's 6,000 people in those towns. So my whole region, I think, has maybe 60,000 people. Right. When we think about Edmonton market, where we're looking at over 1 million, huge difference. So I have to think about the digital savviness and understanding what my market is here. My market here does not look at Instagram ads. They look at bulletin boards and go to the insurance. When they go to insurance, they go to the grocery store and they're looking at what's happening in the community. They want it paper still. I still do a little bit of digital, but I've just found that, from paper targets this specific region more for that persona that I'm, that customer base that I'm going for. So it's understanding your customer. Okay. I can use that digital marketing in other ways as opposed to traditional ways. So we'll go through that throughout the course as well. What's their favorite brands? And then always include a photo. And the cool thing that I learned from a person was a marketing mentor for me was you don't necessarily have to show the face. If you don't show the face, it kind of starts to create allows the viewer to look at the photo to complete that story. And this is, we can go deep into that. I won't go into that tangent about the psychology behind that all. But that would be an exercise. And we would take some time away. Write this down. If you've had a chance to screenshot this page, you can now take a little bit of time to start to think about this persona, because this leads directly into the next area, which is called the customer journey. The customer journey is the steps that a customer goes to from finding you to purchasing whatever it is that you are offering, be it a product or a service. So the one thing with this is that it doesn't happen with just one touch point. You don't put up you don't boost a Facebook post and then all of a sudden you've got, boom, your business is booming. Doesn't work that way. You may luck out sometimes and get some hits that way, but for the most part, for your most loyal customers, it's going to be a relationship. And now when we're thinking about the customer journey, the best exercise for companies that are already existing. So if you're a company small, medium, large, regardless what size you are, go to, if you have a website, go to your website and go through the registration process. If you have a registration form, if you have an email form, have you signed up for your own emails? Do you know what happens when those emails come out? Do you know what it looks like to your customer side? A lot of times the companies will just get it set up and go, okay, it's set up, good, we're going. And they're not taking a look and seeing what type of experience they're actually giving the customer. And are they actually nurturing that customer along this path, getting them close to that purchasing decision? So we're thinking about breaking everything up into unique individual steps. So here's kind of like a customer at the beginning, or want to get them through to the end. And this is a very complex graphic that I'm going to show you. But this one here now shows all the different touch points. So at the beginning, the number one place that a lot of people will search for things is flute player in my area, flute player near me, food near me, right? Hairstylist near me. And they'll get a listing of search results from Google or from whatever search engine they're doing. So SEO becomes important that way. And then where does that drive them to? And then thinking about all the different steps that you want to go through. This is a very complex graphic here, because sometimes all it is just a very simple single path where there's a Google search, it takes them to a specific landing page, or you're able to capture their information. Once you have their information, you're able to send them a nurture sequence, like an email marketing sequence that's going to start to provide them some value. It could be of whatever that service it is. So for me, let's use me as an example. We did one where it was hiking, say, understanding the signs of bears in the area, which is huge for where we are in the Okanagan. Bears are huge. They walk around my front street. Is understanding what the signs are, and then sign up here and I'll send you a guide on understanding how to read tracks, how to read what is happening on the trees and the nature, and how to read scat. And those are our key signs about that. And then giving them that information. Once that information is done, going, if you want more, come back here and sign up. And then I can now send you more information on the next thing would be like how to hike effectively uphill with trekking poles. A lot of people don't know how to do that, even on how to hold a trekking pole properly. So they don't, if they slip and fall, they don't break their thumb when they're doing it. Offering that, continuing that cycle. So I'm giving them something of value. I'm not asking them for anything. And then future down the road, when I do have something coming up saying, like now it's tourist season, it's getting busy, I have only a few spots left, make sure to sign up now. That happens after all those sequences. And now we've got a whole buying cycle that starts to happen. And the important part after is what happens at the end. After they're a customer, asking them for feedback, asking them for testimonials is key. And that's where a lot of businesses fall short. Now, here's kind of an overview of tourism and of my customer journey of kind of like starting out. It's a cyclical process. It's a circle. It's never ending. It can always be refined and be better. So, at the start, where is their attention? What travel brands do they look, do the customers look at? And this takes some work and this takes some time. It's not something that we can figure out in a few hours. It's something that takes a little bit of time and understanding, just interpreting those places, trying something, doesn't work, adapt, change, try something different. What are their options when they're in the area? What other things can they do? How can I fit into those specific things? So for me, where I start all of my tours is at a place called Summerland Suites. And Summerland Suites is a very historic place in Summerland where they've created jams and syrups for over 60 years. And it's also the cheapest place in the whole Okanagan Valley to get ice cream. And they have the most amount of ice cream. And outside, they just have a new food truck called the Smoke Shack, which has probably the best hamburger I've ever had. So we can go on our hike, go on our adventure, come back, we can have food, we can tie in with the food truck. We can tie in with Summerland Suites. If they want to go and see a winery, a vineyard after, I can point them in the direction of my most favorite ones, but ones that I've worked with in the past, to make sure that it's not just an experience that starts at 9 a.m., ends at noon, and see you later was my tip, right? Don't want that. I want them to be able to leave and have an experience and then talk to people about what it was and what else I was able to offer. And that comes down to, how is it going to be easy for people to book? I found that by using Viator, and that was the best booking system that I could, that just attracts. It has its own marketing built into it, so it gets out there and it's searchable, so people were able to use that. And it's very easy. It handles all the payment processing, all of that stuff. I get the email, I talk to them, we go. We don't have to worry about any of that weird processing issues and stuff and payment and stuff. How is it when they're actually a part of the tour? I've taken my wife out, my friends out when I try to find new routes, just so they can get a feel for what it is, and they can give me feedback on how the difficulty of that specific tour was. And then finally finishing it off with how are they going to share, and how can I make it easy for people to share, as opposed to saying, hey, we may be able to experience this. Hey, can you please write us a review? Who wants to do that? Like, is there a way that you can think of it to be easier, right? I don't know what the answer is right now, but there's got to be a way that we can do it so it's easier for people. And then we're providing that service to them as well. So we have a discussion, right? Talk about that, share some experiences, open dialogue. Students are able to share back about their experiences, what they've encountered as well, if they have some experience, or ask questions. And then we'll break off into to an activity. And now it's the journey. And we would break it down and even simplify it even more. How are they going to find out where you are? How are they going to make a decision of considering you? And what are you going to do to convert them into that specific sale that they're going to choose you for that? So it's important to understand who your persona is, because that's going to make you think about the tools that you're going to be using. So you're not spending time using tools that aren't necessary, right? Like if your demographic is not using Facebook, don't use Facebook, right? If your demographic is using TikTok, don't fight it, use TikTok, right? Map out those touch points. What is it like for them to go through it, and go through it yourself? It's just like if you want to do traditional brick and mortar, what's it like coming into your store? What's the first thing the person sees when they come into the store, right? Like, we think about it when you go into a store, walk into the store and you're like, what's the first thing that you see? Are you greeted? Is there products? Is it some, somebody who's didn't say hello or good morning? And you're just kind of like, well, what's the point, right? What is that experience like? And how is the movement through the store? How is it designed? And it should be designed. Think about how theme parks do it. Disney. When you're traveling, you're going through the theme park, and then what happens when you're exiting? When you're exiting, you're going through the gift shop. They don't put you through the gift shop first. They get you all excited about stuff, and then they put you through the gift shop at the end, so you get that extra cash. That's by design. And then they have great customer service, usually, so that it entices you to do it, as well as throughout the experience, they're going to put marks saying this is available at the gift shop. Go to the Louvre and you go and you see the Mona Lisa. You can, there's a little placard that says you can purchase a print copy of the Mona Lisa at the gift shop. Boom, right? And then you can get your printed copy for it. Once the students would go through this, then what would happen was we would have another discussion on it. And this is a bigger exercise. Then we would take answer any questions about any of the activities that we did. Usually, doing one activity is ideal for class. Sometimes we need to do two, nothing more, because then it gets too much. And then go off and work on this on your own time, and get this in front of other people and share with your students, and, building community and networking together to see how we can help. And then the next class would be, at the beginning of the class, would be sharing your journey. So asking a couple students who feel comfortable with sharing their journey to share it, and then we can give feedback. Or a new technique that I've been using that's been very successful is put everybody into groups, 2 or 3 people. Everybody presents their customer journey to their group, and they provide feedback, because everybody's going to have a different view on it. Some people are coming from a 1-person shop. Some people a 5-person shop. Some people a 100-person shop. And that input is going to be really valuable to be able to grow. And then we'll come back together and have that discussion. So the live sessions are more collaborative. They're more designed, as opposed to talking head going mop, 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 mop. We want to create and facilitate that two-way conversation between myself as the instructor and you as the student, but I'm learning from you guys as well. That's like the key to this whole thing. That's the method behind the madness of, I think, great instructors, is the fact that they want to learn, get as much learning from their students as they get provided to them. So that's it, folks. Always provide my sources. So everything in the whole course and the whole program is outlined with cited sources, so you can see exactly the academic resources that are utilized for this to bring legitimacy from this. It's not a person's opinion. This is actually based upon some very good resources for us. So That's it for me. I'm done. Thank you for your time.